The huge crystal room filled with noise as beings from all over the galaxy came together. Today was special. A new species had learned to travel between stars, and the Galactic Council would decide what job they should do. The new species called themselves humans, and they came from a small blue planet called Earth. Jake Morrison stood in the middle of the giant room. He was the human ambassador, the one chosen to speak for all humans. Next to him stood Dr. Lisa Grant, who knew many languages, and Colonel Ryan Baker, a soldier who understood war. The three humans looked very small compared to the other beings. Around them, the Xanthari were tall with 4 arms each. They had ruled parts of the galaxy for thousands of years. The Voidkin looked like ghosts made of light, floating inside special containers. The Krell appeared to be made of living crystal that hummed with ancient knowledge. There were many other species too, all much older and more powerful than humans. High Counselor Vex Thalen was the leader of the Xanthari. He stood up on his high platform and looked down at the humans. His voice was deep and filled the entire room. The species called humans will be put in Category 7. This means manual labor and digging for resources. Your simple technology and short lives make you good for mining and basic building work on faraway worlds. The room filled with laughter. It was not mean laughter, but it was not kind either. The Voidkin made musical sounds that seemed to mock the humans. The Krell's crystal bodies rang with tones that sounded like gentle teasing. Even the Nexari, who usually stayed quiet, moved their tentacles in ways that showed they thought this was funny. Jake Morrison felt his jaw get tight, but he kept his face calm. He had been a diplomat for many years and knew how to stay cool under pressure. With respect, High Counselor, I think there might be a mistake. Humans have done things that might make you think again about our abilities. Abilities? The voice came from Counselor Zara 9 of the Nexari Collective. Her voice sounded like a machine, cold and without feeling. Your species has barely left its home star system. You fight each other over things that could power one of our cities for just a few days. What could you possibly give to the Council? Lisa Grant stepped forward. Her voice was steady even though she was surrounded by beings who had controlled the galaxy for thousands of years. We offer something the Council seems to have forgotten. We can create new things when times are hard. We can change when we need to. And we never give up when things look impossible. More laughter filled the room, but this time it was sharper and less friendly. The ancient Krell representative spoke next. His crystal form glowed with deep purple light, and his voice sounded like thunder from far away. Changing is something only civilized species can do. You will change to fit your new job, or you will be removed from galactic society completely. Colonel Baker's hand moved toward his weapon without thinking, but Jake quickly put a hand on his shoulder to stop him. We accept what the Council has decided, Jake said. His voice had something in it that the translation machines could not quite understand. But we ask for 1 standard galactic year to prove our worth through actions instead of just words. High Counselor Vex Thalen waved his 4 arms like he was brushing away something annoying. Fine, you have 1 year to show any value beyond digging and building. When you fail, as you surely will, you will accept your job without arguing anymore. As guards led the human team out of the room, Jake caught Colonel Baker's eye. The soldier looked grim, but there was something else in his expression. It was the same look humans had worn when they faced every dark time and impossible challenge in their history. It was defiance. Outside the council chambers, they walked through the huge corridors of the Galactic Capital Station. The halls were bigger than anything on Earth, filled with beings and machines that represented thousands of years of galactic civilization. Lisa Grant spoke quietly so only her companions could hear. Jake, what are you planning? That was not just normal diplomatic talk back there. Jake Morrison smiled, but it was not the polite smile he had worn in the chamber. This smile was something much more dangerous. Lisa, they just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They gave us a year to get ready, and they have no idea what humans can do when someone tells them something is impossible. The 3 humans walked through the station, past aliens who barely noticed them. The other species saw them as just another primitive race that would soon be working in mines and building sites across the galaxy. They had no idea that they had just awakened something that had never existed in galactic history. Humans had spent millions of years fighting their way to the top of the food chain on a world that tried to kill them every day. They had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that would have ended other species. They had learned to turn every setback into a comeback, every defeat into a lesson, every impossible situation into just another problem to solve. The Galactic Council had just told humanity that they were not good enough, that they were weak, that they should accept being servants to their betters. But humans had a long history of proving people wrong when they were underestimated. As they reached their ship, Colonel Baker finally spoke. "Jake, they have no idea what they just did, do they?" Jake Morrison looked back at the massive station, where the council met, where species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia made decisions that affected billions of lives. "No, Ryan, they don't. They think they just classified another weak species. What they actually did was declare war on the one species in the galaxy that has never learned how to surrender." The revolution had begun not with weapons or threats, but with laughter and dismissal. The galaxy was about to learn that the most dangerous thing you can do to humans is tell them they can't do something. Because humans had built their entire civilization on proving that impossible was just another word for something they had not figured out how to do yet, the year of proving had started, and Earth was about to show the galaxy what happened when you challenged a species that had never met a problem they could not solve, never faced an enemy they could not defeat, and never encountered a word like impossible that they did not take as a personal challenge. The Galactic Council had laughed at humanity, but very soon humanity would shock them all. 3 months had passed since the Galactic Council laughed at humanity. Most aliens had already forgotten about the small species from the outer part of the galaxy. The Xanthari kept expanding their empire, the Voidkin continued their mysterious energy work, and the Krell went on with their ancient debates about life and existence. But something strange was happening in the working areas of many worlds. Something that had never been seen before in galactic history. On the mining planet Kepler 442b, human workers led by Foreman Pete Rodriguez had made ore collection 3 times faster than before. The Xanthari bosses first thought this was because humans were scared of punishment. But the truth was much more disturbing to their way of thinking. The humans had redesigned the entire mining operation using ideas about efficiency that had never occurred to species who had used the same methods for thousands of years. "They are not just following orders," reported Xanthari supervisor Gex Morian to his leaders. "They are creating new things. Every day they show us new methods, new tools, new ways of thinking about problems we solved hundreds of years ago." Similar reports came from all over the galaxy. On the farming world of Harvest Prime, human plant expert Dr. Amy Chun had developed crop-growing techniques that made food production 4 times better while actually making the soil healthier. The Nexari Collective, who had managed the planet's food for 2,000 years, found themselves useless within weeks. But it was not just efficiency that was getting attention. On the fortress world of Barrier Station, human construction crews, led by engineer Sam Wright, had been told to fix battle damage from a recent Voidkin attack. Not only had they finished the repairs in record time, but they had completely redesigned the station's defense systems using engineering principles that made the fortress almost impossible to attack. Commander Thex Valen of the Xanthari Defense Corps stood in his newly strengthened command center. He looked at displays that showed energy flow patterns his people had never thought of. "How?" he asked the human engineer. "How did you know to redirect the power flow through the outer hull?" "Plates?" Sam Wright, his hands still dirty from construction work, shrugged. "Back on Earth, we call it thinking outside the box. You build your defenses like old castles, all thick walls and heavy armor. But sometimes the best defense is making your enemy's attacks help you instead of hurt you." The implications were shocking. If humans could revolutionize mining, farming, and defense engineering in just a few months, what could they do with real resources and time? The answer came from an unexpected place. On the research station Nexus 7, human physicist Dr. Carl Foster had been assigned to basic maintenance work. But during his free time, he had been quietly watching the Krell's experimental faster-than-light communication system. The project had been stuck for decades, unable to overcome the energy needs required for instant galactic communication. Dr. Foster approached the lead Krell researcher, whose crystal form flickered with frustrated purple light. Honored Krell Master. Thulanet, I believe I see the problem with your communication array. The ancient being's form shifted to a condescending blue color. Human Unit Foster, this project involves quantum mechanics beyond your species' understanding. Return to your assigned duties. But Carl Foster had spent his career studying theoretical physics at MIT, and he had noticed something the Krell had missed. The energy requirements are exponential because you are trying to force a direct connection across galactic distances. But what if instead of pushing through space, you borrowed energy from the quantum foam itself? The implications hit Thulanet like a physical blow. The human was suggesting using the universe's own energy as a transmission medium. It was elegant, efficient, and completely revolutionary. Within hours, news of the breakthrough spread through the galactic scientific community. The Voidkin, who had considered themselves the masters of energy manipulation, found themselves scrambling to understand human theoretical frameworks. The Zenthari, whose empire was built on controlling communication and transport, realized that their monopoly might be ending, but the most significant development was happening on Earth itself. Ambassador Jake Morrison had returned home not in defeat, but with a plan. In hidden facilities across the planet, humanity's greatest minds were working on projects that would have been impossible without the galactic technology they had observed during their brief time in council space. Dr. Helen Martinez, formerly of NASA, was leading a team that had reverse-engineered Zenthari shield technology and improved upon it. Colonel Ryan Baker was training Special Forces units in tactics designed specifically for fighting in zero-gravity environments against species with advantages in strength, speed, or psychic abilities. But the most secret project was taking place in a nondescript building in Colorado, where a team led by engineer Tony Rodriguez was working on something that would change everything. A human-designed starship that did not just match galactic technology but surpassed it. The ship they were building incorporated lessons learned from every species they had encountered. It had the strength of Zenthari engineering, the energy efficiency of Voidkin technology, and the strategic flexibility of Krell design philosophy. But it also had something no galactic ship had ever possessed: the unpredictability and adaptability that came from being designed by a species that had learned to survive by being better than everyone else at everything that mattered. As months passed, whispers began to spread through the galactic community. The humans were not just exceeding expectations. They were rewriting the rules of what was possible. High Counselor Vex Thalen called an emergency session of the Inner Council. We may have made an error in judgment, he admitted to his fellow counselors. The humans are not developing as we anticipated. Counselor Zaranine's mechanical voice carried an edge of concern. They are operating beyond their designated parameters. Some of our analysts believe they may be approaching Category 5 capabilities. The Krell representative, Thulanet, pulsed with deep red light. The assessment was incorrect. These humans are not Category 7, they may not even be Category 5? The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Category 5 species were considered advanced civilizations, capable of independent operation and limited self-governance. If humans were approaching Category 5 capabilities in less than a year, what would they be capable of if given time? And resources? There is another possibility, Vex Thalen said quietly, one that we have not considered. What possibility? Asked Zaranine. That we have encountered something that has never existed in galactic history, a species that does not fit our classification system at all. The revolution was accelerating, and the galaxy was beginning to realize that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or their innovation. It was their absolute refusal to accept that something could not be done. In hidden facilities. Across human space, the greatest minds of Earth were working around the clock. They were not just building ships and weapons and technologies. They were building the future of galactic civilization itself. Whether the galaxy wanted it or not, the year of proving was only 1/4 done, but already the galaxy was beginning to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. They had not just underestimated humanity. They had awakened something that would either transform galactic civilization or replace it entirely. The storm was gathering, and at its center was a species that had never learned the meaning of the word impossible. The discovery came during what should have been a routine inspection of human mining operations on the industrial world of extraction site. Gamma 7. Xanthari Inspector Kexthalen had arrived expecting to find the usual problems and minor violations. That happened with Category 7 species operations. Instead, he found something that challenged everything the galactic community believed about civilization, technology, and the nature of progress itself. The mining facility had been transformed into something unrecognizable. Where once there had been crude extraction equipment and dangerous working conditions, now there stood a marvel of engineering that operated with near-perfect efficiency. The human workers were not just mining ore, they were simultaneously purifying it, processing it into construction materials, and using those materials to continuously improve their own equipment. "This is impossible," Kexthalen muttered to his aide, a young Xanthari named Vex Neural. "Category 7 species do not innovate. They follow established procedures." The human foreman, a weathered man named Jack Sullivan, approached the inspection team with a confident stride that immediately put the Xanthari on edge. "Inspector Kexthalen, welcome to Site Gamma 7. I trust you will find our operations satisfactory." "Your operations exceed parameters," Kexthalen replied, his forearms gesturing toward the transformed facility. "This level of efficiency should be impossible for your species." Jack Sullivan's grin was distinctly predatory. "That's funny, Inspector. Back on Earth we have a saying, impossible is just another word for something nobody has figured out how to do yet." The inspection became a revelation of human capabilities that sent shockwaves through the galactic hierarchy. The humans had not just improved the mining operation. They had fundamentally redesigned the concept of resource extraction. They had developed new metal mixtures that were stronger than anything in the galactic database, created energy systems that operated at efficiencies that violated established physical laws, and implemented organizational structures that eliminated waste entirely. But the most disturbing discovery came when Kexthalen accessed the site's communication logs. The humans were not just working in isolation. They were sharing their innovations across their entire species through a network that operated faster and more efficiently than official galactic communication channels. "How are you maintaining real-time communication with your homeworld?" Kexthalen demanded. "The Council controls all long-range communication technology." Dr. Rachel Martinez, the site's chief engineer, stepped forward. "We built our own network. Turns out the Council's communication system is about as efficient as sending messages by carrier pigeon. We have been using quantum entanglement principles that we developed based on observations of your technology, but improved by about 300%. The implications were staggering. If humans had developed superior communication technology in less than a year, what else had they accomplished? The answer came from across the galaxy simultaneously. On the research station Nexus 7, Dr. Carl Foster had not only solved the Krell's communication problem, but had used the solution to develop a new form of faster-than-light travel that did not require the massive energy expenditures of traditional galactic ships. On the agricultural world of Harvest Prime, human botanist Dr. Amy Chun had developed crop strains that could grow in environments previously considered uninhabitable, potentially solving food shortages that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. But the most significant development was happening on Earth itself, where humanity's greatest secret was about to be revealed. Admiral Patricia Hayes stood on the bridge of the newly constructed USS Defiance, humanity's first indigenous starship. The vessel was a masterpiece of engineering that incorporated the best of galactic technology while adding innovations that no other species had conceived. The ship's hull was composed of adaptive materials that could reconfigure themselves based on environmental conditions. Its energy systems operated on principles of efficiency that approached theoretical maximums, and its defensive systems were built around the uniquely human concept of controlled chaos, the ability to turn any attack into an advantage through unpredictable responses. Status report, Admiral Hayes ordered. Commander Steve Parker, her first officer, consulted his displays. All systems are operating at optimal efficiency. The quantum drive is stable, defensive systems are online, and the crew is ready for our first test flight. Then let's show the galaxy what humans can do when they stop asking permission and start taking action. The UES Defiance lifted off from Earth's surface using propulsion systems that operated on principles the galactic community had never imagined. Instead of the brute force approach used by other species, the human ship moved through space like a dancer, using gravitational fields and quantum fluctuations to achieve speeds that should have been impossible for a ship of its size. The test flight was detected by galactic monitoring stations within hours. Emergency sessions were called across the galaxy as the implications became clear. Humanity had not only achieved technological parity with galactic civilization, but had surpassed it in less than a year. High Counselor Vex Thalen stood before the assembled Galactic Council, his forearms trembling with a mixture of rage and fear. The humans have violated every protocol of galactic civilization. They have developed military technology without authorization, established communication networks without permission, and are now operating starships that exceed our own capabilities. Counselor Zaranine's mechanical voice carried an edge of panic. Our analysts estimate that at their current rate of development, they will achieve Category 1 capabilities within 5 years. They will surpass us within 10. The chamber erupted in chaos. Category 1 species were the theoretical pinnacle of galactic civilization, being so advanced that they transcended physical limitations and operated on scales that approached godlike power. No species in galactic history had ever achieved Category 1 status, but the Krell representative, Tholanet, pulsed with deep blue light as he spoke. The assessment is incorrect. The humans are not following established development patterns. They are not proceeding through categories in sequence. What do you mean? Demanded Vex Thalen. They are innovating simultaneously across all fields of knowledge. They are not just advanced. They are revolutionary. We have not encountered a Category 7 species developing Category 1 capabilities. We have encountered something that does not fit our understanding of civilization itself. The truth was becoming clear to the galactic community. Humanity was not just another species to be classified and controlled. They were something entirely new, something that challenged the fundamental assumptions upon which galactic society had been built. Ambassador Jake Morrison stood once again before the Galactic Council, but this time the chamber was silent. The laughter that had greeted humanity's first appearance had been replaced by something that no galactic species had felt in millennia: uncertainty. Honored counselors, Jake began, his voice carrying a confidence that had been absent during his first appearance. You asked for a year to evaluate humanity's worth. That year is nearly over, and I believe we have demonstrated our capabilities quite thoroughly. You have exceeded your designated parameters, Vex Thalen replied, his voice strained. This is unprecedented in galactic history. Unprecedented is just another word for first time, Jake replied. And humans have always been good at being first. First to harness fire, first to split the atom, first to reach our moon, and now first to show the galaxy that your classification system is obsolete. The revolution had reached its tipping point. Humanity had proven that they were not just another species to be controlled and managed. They were something new, something that would either join the galactic community as equals or replace it entirely. The choice Jake Morrison made clear was no longer humanity's to make. It was the galaxy's. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been in continuous debate for 3 standard days. Representatives from every major species had gathered in the great crystalline chamber, but the usual order and dignity of galactic governance had dissolved into something approaching chaos. High Counselor Vex Thalen stood at the center of the chamber, his forearms spread wide in a gesture that demanded attention. The situation has escalated beyond our ability to control through standard protocols. The humans have not only exceeded their Category 7 designation, but have demonstrated capabilities that threaten the fundamental structure of galactic civilization. The evidence was overwhelming. In the past month, human innovations had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Mining operations that had been stagnant for centuries were now operating at efficiencies that seemed to violate physical laws. Agricultural systems that had fed the galaxy for millennia were being redesigned by human botanists who treated established wisdom as merely a starting point for improvement. But the most disturbing development was the emergence of human diplomatic missions on dozens of worlds. These were not official government representatives, but rather individual humans, who had somehow convinced local populations to adopt human innovations and methodologies. Dr. Lisa Grant, who had been humanities linguist during the original council, appearance, now stood before the Voidkin Collective's governing body on their homeworld of Ethereal Prime, the Voidkin, who had considered themselves the masters of energy manipulation, watched in fascination as she demonstrated human improvements to their power distribution systems. "Your energy networks are beautiful," Lisa said, her voice carrying the respect of one expert addressing another. "But they are also incredibly wasteful. You are trying to maintain perfect harmony in your energy flows, but harmony is not always the most effective approach. The lead Voidkin, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline matrix, pulsed with curiosity. Explain, human entity. Grant. On Earth, we learned that sometimes the best results come from controlled chaos. Instead of trying to maintain perfect balance, what if you allowed your energy systems to fluctuate within safe parameters? The variations would actually increase overall efficiency while reducing the energy required for maintenance." The demonstration that followed revolutionized Voidkin technology overnight. Their energy systems, which had operated on the same principles for thousands of years, were suddenly capable of outputs that exceeded their theoretical maximums. The implications rippled through Voidkin society, challenging not just their technology but their fundamental philosophy of harmony and balance. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. On the ancient Krell homeworld of Wisdom's Edge, human physicist Dr. Carl Foster was working with crystalline beings who had spent millennia contemplating the nature of existence. But instead of accepting their philosophical frameworks, he was asking questions that challenged their basic assumptions. "You have been trying to understand the universe by observing it," Carl explained to a gathering of Krell elders. "But what if understanding comes from interaction? What if the universe is meant to be changed rather than just observed?" The concept was revolutionary to beings who had spent eons in passive contemplation. But when Carl demonstrated how human experimental methods could accelerate their research by orders of magnitude, the Krell began to question everything they had believed about knowledge and wisdom. Back in the council chamber, the implications of these developments were becoming clear. Humanity was not just exceeding their designated role. They were actively transforming every species they encountered. "They are not just innovating," reported Xanthari Intelligence Director Mex Thalen. "They are teaching other species to innovate. Every world they visit shows immediate improvements in efficiency, technology, and social organization." Counselor Zara9's mechanical voice carried a note of fear that her species had never experienced. "The humans are not seeking to conquer or control. They are seeking to elevate. They are treating every species as potential equals rather than subjects or superiors." The statement hung in the chamber like a condemnation. For millennia, galactic civilization had been based on hierarchy, classification, and control. Species were assigned roles based on their capabilities and expected to fulfill those roles without question. The concept of elevation, of helping other species exceed their designated parameters was not just unprecedented. It was dangerous to the entire structure of galactic society, but the most disturbing reports were coming from the Outer Rim territories, where human colonies were beginning to establish themselves. These were not the crude settlements that the Council had expected from a Category 7 species. They were marvels of engineering and social organization that operated on principles no galactic species had ever conceived on the frontier world of New Horizon. Human colonists led by Administrator Karen Mitchell had not only established a thriving settlement, but had created a society that seemed to solve problems that had plagued galactic civilization for centuries. The colony operated without the rigid hierarchies that characterized other species' settlements. Instead, they had developed a system where every individual contributed according to their abilities and received according to their needs, while maintaining the innovation and efficiency that had become humanity's hallmark. How do you maintain order without a clear command structure? Asked the Xanthari observer who had been sent to monitor the colony. Karen Mitchell, a former city planner from Denver, smiled. We maintain order through shared purpose rather than imposed authority. When everyone understands the goals and has the freedom to contribute their best efforts, hierarchy becomes unnecessary. The implications were staggering. If humans could create societies that operated more efficiently than established galactic civilizations while maintaining individual freedom and innovation, what did that mean for the future of the galaxy? The answer came from an unexpected source. On the industrial world of Forge Prime, human workers had not only revolutionized the manufacturing processes, but had begun teaching other species to do the same. The result was a cross-species collaboration that produced technologies and innovations that exceeded anything any single species had achieved. They are not just elevating themselves, reported the Nixari observer on Forge Prime. They are elevating us. Working with humans has made us more than we were before. The statement sent shockwaves through the galactic community. The idea that interaction with humans could improve other species challenged everything the Council believed about racial characteristics and capabilities. High Counselor Vex Thalen called for an emergency vote. The humans have demonstrated that they cannot be contained within our classification system. They are actively destabilizing galactic civilization by encouraging other species to exceed their designated parameters. What do you propose? Asked Thalanet, the Krell representative. We have two options, Vex Thalen replied. We can attempt to integrate humanity into the galactic community as equals, abandoning our classification system and accepting the chaos that will follow. Or we can act to contain the human threat before it destroys everything we have built. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. For the first time in galactic history, the Council was faced with a choice that would determine not just the fate of one species, but the future of civilization itself. Counselor Zaranine's mechanical voice broke the silence. There is a third option. We can learn from the humans. We can allow them to teach us to exceed our own limitations. The suggestion was heretical. It implied that the galactic community, with its millennia of accumulated wisdom and established order, could be improved by a species that had only recently achieved interstellar travel, but as reports continued to flood in from across the galaxy, showing unprecedented levels of innovation and cooperation wherever humans were present, the Council began to realize that they were facing something they had never encountered before, a species that did not just want to join galactic civilization, but wanted to make it better. The revolution had reached its point of no return. The galaxy would either embrace change or be left behind by it. The final session of the Galactic Council convened under circumstances that would have been unimaginable just 1 year earlier. The great crystalline chamber, which had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations across millennia, now hosted a gathering that would determine whether galactic society would evolve or collapse under the weight of its own rigid traditions. Ambassador Jake Morrison stood once again at the center of the chamber, but he was no longer alone. Beside him stood representatives from dozens of species who had worked with humans during the past year. Dr. Lisa Grant was there, along with the Voidkin energy specialist who had revolutionized their power systems. Dr. Carl Foster stood beside. A Krell elder whose crystalline form pulsed with the excitement of new discoveries. Human engineers, scientists, and innovators were accompanied by aliens, who had become partners rather than superiors or subjects. High Counselor Vex Thalen rose from his platform, his forearms trembling with the weight of the decision that lay before the council. The year of evaluation has concluded. The humans have demonstrated capabilities that exceed all established parameters for their designated classification. More than that, interrupted Counselor Zaranine, her mechanical voice carrying newfound respect. They have demonstrated something that we believed impossible, the ability to elevate other species beyond their established limitations. The chamber buzzed with conversations in a dozen languages as the assembled representatives discussed the implications. The evidence was overwhelming. Wherever humans had worked alongside other species, the results had exceeded what any single species could achieve alone. The Xanthari mining operations that had incorporated human innovations were now the most efficient in the galaxy. The Voidkin energy systems that had been redesigned using human principles were generating power outputs that had been considered theoretical maximums. The Krell research projects that had included human experimental methods were making discoveries at rates that compressed centuries of work into months, but the most significant development was the emergence of mixed species, colonies and installations, where humans and aliens worked together as equals. These communities were not just more efficient than traditional galactic settlements. They were happier, more innovative, and more resilient in the face of challenges. Thalanet. The ancient Krell representative pulsed with deep blue light as he spoke. The humans have taught us something we had forgotten in our millennia of existence, that wisdom is not about knowing everything, but about never stopping the search for better answers. They have shown us that strength is not about domination, added Vex Morian, a Xanthari commander whose fortress had been revolutionized by human engineering. It is about lifting others up with you. The testimonies continued for hours. Species after species recounted how contact with humans had not just improved their technology or efficiency, but had fundamentally changed their understanding of what was possible. The humans had not conquered or controlled. They had inspired and elevated. Finally, Jake Morrison was invited to address the council. He walked to the center of the chamber, looking up at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization, and spoke with the quiet confidence that had become humanity's hallmark. Honored counselors, a year ago you classified humanity as Category 7, suitable only for manual labor and resource extraction. You laughed at our presumption to suggest we might have something to offer. Today I stand before you not to ask for reclassification, but to propose something that has never existed in galactic history, the end of the classification system itself. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. The classification system had been the foundation of galactic civilization. For thousands of years, it determined everything from trade relationships to territorial boundaries to individual rights and responsibilities. The classification system is based on the assumption that species have fixed capabilities and roles, Jake continued. But this past year has proven that assumption wrong. Every species we have worked with has exceeded their designated parameters. The Voidkin have developed energy systems beyond their theoretical limits. The Krell have accelerated their research by centuries. The Xanthari have achieved efficiencies they thought impossible. High Counselor Vex Thalen stood slowly, his forearms spread wide. Human Morrison, you are suggesting the dissolution of the very foundation of galactic order. Without classifications, how would we maintain stability? How would we prevent chaos? By replacing control with cooperation, Jake replied. By replacing hierarchy with partnership. By replacing limitations with possibilities, Dr. Lisa Grant stepped forward. The past year has shown us that when species work together as equals, they achieve things that none of them could accomplish alone. The mixed colonies, the joint research projects, the collaborative innovations, they all prove that diversity of thought and approach leads to better solutions than any single perspective. The Voidkin representative, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline matrix, pulsed with brilliant light. The human proposal has merit. Our energy systems improved dramatically when we abandoned our traditional harmony in favor of controlled variation. Perhaps galactic civilization could benefit from similar flexibility. One by one, representatives from across the galaxy began to speak in favor of the human proposal. The Nexari collective, whose mechanical precision had been enhanced by human unpredictability. The Krell elders, whose ancient wisdom had been revitalized by human experimentation. The Xanthari commanders, whose military might had been strengthened by human innovation. But it was the emergence of the mixed species delegations that truly demonstrated the power of Jake Morrison's proposal. Humans and aliens who had worked together over the past year stood side by side, their achievements speaking louder than any words could. The vote, when it came, was not the formal procedure that had characterized galactic governance for millennia. Instead, it was a moment of collective realization that the old ways were not just obsolete but actively harmful to the potential of galactic civilization. High Counselor Vex Thalen looked around the chamber at the faces of beings who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, now united in acknowledgement of humanity's transformative influence. The motion to dissolve the classification system and establish a new framework based on cooperation and mutual elevation is ... approved. The chamber erupted in celebration, but it was not the formal applause of diplomatic protocol. It was the genuine joy of beings who had just witnessed the birth of something unprecedented. A galactic civilization based on the principle that every species had unlimited potential, if given the opportunity to grow. Jake Morrison stood at the center of the chamber, surrounded by the representatives of dozens of species who had become humanity's partners in transformation. The laughter that had greeted humanity's first appearance in this chamber had been replaced by something far more powerful. Hope. The revolution was complete. Humanity had not just shocked the galaxy. They had shown it a new way to exist. The classification system was dead, replaced by a vision of cooperation and mutual elevation that would guide galactic civilization into a future that no single species could have imagined alone. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, planning the new galactic government that would emerge from this historic decision, Jake Morrison reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. A year ago, the galaxy had laughed at humanity's presumption. Today, humanity had given the galaxy a gift that would transform it forever. The understanding that impossible was just another word for something they had not yet learned to do together. The new dawn had begun, and it belonged to all of them.